morning, everybody. It's Coffee and Politics Online with Sydney Walker, and we are having an impromptu show because I normally don't schedule at 9 o'clock, but this goes right in line with everything that we've been talking about in Dallas and Save Dallas City Hall. And Bryan Perry here reached out to me to talk about the vote and the discussion that was happening in Arlington with the Cowboys Stadium. And I thought it was just so appropriate. I was like, oh yeah, of course you want more taxpayer dollars, because why not? It's kind of like, free money. But after looking at the reasons why they voted and kind of looking at where the stadium is in relationship to what could come about in Arlington with that entertainment district, it just made perfect sense. And I thought, oh my gosh, and it would make perfect sense to continue to do that at the AAC. So this morning I'm joined with Bryan Perry. He is a member of the American Institute of Architecture.
Yes.
He is LEED certified, so if you don't know about that, that's the certification for green buildings, making them sustainable, less of our usual technology for heating and cooling, making sure that wildlife is safe. And I know that because I worked at Cigna in Plano, and that was a LEED certified building that they built there. Yes, but his background is in hospitality, K through 12 education, and healthcare, with all phases of design, development, and construction administration. So we have somebody here who has cut their teeth in this industry and they know what they're talking about. So good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yes, this is a really big topic. The sentiment in Arlington, are people happy about the vote?
It depends on who you follow on Facebook.
Okay.
So, I want to start with, I was at the City Hall, the City Council meeting when they had the vote. This passed 7-2. I really haven't been able to talk to the two people, Bowie Hogg and Nikki Hunter, who voted no. So I don't know their reasoning yet. But we're very excited that it did pass 7-2. So a little bit about the details. So this vote was to extend the lease of the AT&T Stadium to the Cowboys for another 15 years. It's actually considered a refinance of the Globe Life Field bonds. So we'll get to that in a minute. The owner's side, so this is the bonds for that are being paid by a half-cent sales tax, hotel tax, ticket tax. And then on the owner's side, it's being paid by a ticket tax and parking tax. So the city of Arlington is responsible for $273 million from city taxes, and the team is paying for $750 million from the team. So where is that money going for? What is it going to? So here's what that includes. It's going to include 3 pedestrian bridges, I believe 2 over Collins, 1 over Randall Mill. Okay. So if you've ever driven through there on a Cowboys day, or if you've driven through on a concert day, there's literally 90,000, 100,000 people walking, and there's parking on both sides of Collins, and it's just starts backing up all the way up to 30. So this is going to improve the flow of traffic through there and pedestrian safety. So pedestrian safety has been a big issue in Arlington recently, unfortunately.
So it kind of sounds like it's going to be kind of reminiscent of Irving Stadium. So if any of you guys are old enough to remember that, there was a pedestrian bridge over 114 to the stadium from the huge parking lot that became I think a car dealership. So yes, all right. Well, kudos for pedestrian safety. Go ahead.
Yeah. So also in that is it's going to be it's going to meet the Safety Act, like Globe Life. And what the Safety Act is a federal certification, and that's more of it hardening it as a target against any attacks or anything like that. So they're going to have a separate receiving for packages. They're going to have a separate area to process employees from the actual attendees. So that's a big deal. And it's also going to update and upgrade like infrastructure. You know, this thing's going to be at least 50 years old by the time they're done. Yeah. Some of those systems have to be replaced about 25, 30 years in. So but you know, a lot of people are concerned that this is just putting more money in Jerry Jones' pocket, and actually it's putting it into an asset owned by Arlington. So, Jerome, nice to meet you.
Third guest has joined in. Hi there. Go ahead and have a seat. I'll make some camera adjustments. Go ahead, Bryan.
Yeah. So I think it's a very beneficial thing because this is Arlington owned. We're putting more money into our asset, and I think it's going to stabilize, you know, growth in the entertainment and stadium district in Arlington for a lot more years. So.
Okay. Well, and that's very important because that was a huge investment, and I remember quite a few of the businesses were very gung-ho about having the stadium in Arlington because economic development, more money, more people coming in to spend. So that is a win-win in that regard. But the biggest thing that I think is the stark contrast with the Cowboys Stadium versus the AAC, because that's going to be the comparison, is that there really there hasn't been this explosion of development around Cowboys Stadium, as you would expect to see from other entertainment districts.
So one thing that's interesting is if you've been out to the stadiums, there is Texas Live, there's Live by Lowe's, and that was actually a deal with the Rangers before the Globe Life Field came. They knew there's a really good chance it was coming, so they wanted to be prepared. So they went ahead and they were able to make a deal with the Cordage Company to build Texas Live and the Live by Lowe's, and now we do have the Lowe's Hotel. So we actually have currently 1,200 hotel rooms in that area. So they're going to actually build another 500. They're tearing down the Sheridan. They're going to replace that with a much more upscale hotel. So having 1,000-room hotel is a really big deal when you're trying to attract major events like a Super Bowl.
Yes, big time, or Olympics, or any other big sporting event. It's just so interesting because the Omni has 1,000 rooms, and we're building. Eventually, we'll get our new convention center. But now that Jerome has arrived, thank you so much, sir, for coming on. So you may be familiar with his face. He spent 15 years with KERA covering all cultural aspects of DFW as a senior arts producer and reporter. And he was also a book columnist with the Dallas Morning News for 10 years. And before that, he was the theater critic for another 10 years. And he's currently a fellow of the Dallas Institute of Humanities and Culture. And he's going to bring some discussion around gambling. Because we all know here in Dallas, the Mavericks want their new stadium. And some of you guys may not know, but they actually bought about 100 acres in Irving where the old Texas Stadium used to stand. But in March of last year, residents in Arlington and Irving voiced their opinion of no gambling, no casino in the city of Irving. So that became a dead deal, basically. They still own the land, but I'm not sure what they're eventually going to do with it. But that brought them over to Dallas to look at, hey, how can we have this entertainment district that we want that will eventually have a casino? Because we all can see the tea leaves here and get that gambling will be legalized in the state of Texas. It's just too much money that could be made, and the Adelsons want their first foothold in it. So, Jerome, how does that play out with these entertainment districts?
Well, I'm going to give a kind of long historic perspective on this. I grew up in Detroit, and Detroit's directly across Windsor, Canada. And Windsor, Canada had casinos. And because Detroit, this was 30 years ago, Detroit was in financial difficulties at the time, there was a great deal of push in Michigan to legalize gambling and to create casinos in Detroit. And at the time, I was a book critic for 40 years, and there were a number of books that had come out about gambling and its effects and the changes in the economy. And so I did some reporting on it, interviewed some professors about it, and it was quite fascinating. When we think of gambling, we still think in terms of, Las Vegas, essentially destination gambling.
Yeah.
But what this is called is convenience gambling. That is, that you don't have to get in the plane, you don't have to go anywhere.
Okay.
The difficulty with convenience gambling, regardless of whether you can now do it on an app or whatever,
Right.
you can do it in town. One of the difficulties with convenience gambling is in contrast to destination gambling, is you go there and you spend your money and then you take all your troubles home.
Yeah.
Convenience gambling, the problems stay in the community.
Yes.
So we're talking, and the ramifications, people tend to think of the problems of gambling as the person with a gambling problem, the loser.
Right.
But that doesn't take into account the ramifications, and that is, it's not simply the loser, it's his failed mortgage, it's his lost job, it's the effects on the family, so forth and so on. And those are borne up by the community. Now, people are aware of this. In fact, there have been very few statewide referendums on gambling that have actually succeeded.
Okay.
One of the last was New Jersey, which gave us Atlantic City.
Yes.
So what's happened in the 30 years since that is that they don't go to a popular referendum. They go to the State House. They go directly to the State House because they have lots of money and they can influence elections. They can influence ballot propositions. But what's also true in long term effects of gambling is not simply that you've created this entertainment center, this casino, people are coming under things, is you've created a constituency. And that is people with jobs, even though they tend to be minimum wage jobs, the great mass of them, still their jobs. So you have people with jobs, and now you also have people whose establishments, whose eateries, whatever, theaters, whatever, are dependent upon that clientele also are a constituency to continue and support gambling. The negative effects of this are so clear in Atlantic City. The idea for gambling, for the casinos at that time was you basically create everything in the casino, drinks, food, hotels, entertainment, because you don't want the gamblers to leave. They leave, they stop losing.
Lotus flower effect.
They leave, they stop losing money. So you don't want them to leave, which is why in most casinos, if you go into them, even very contemporary ones, there are no windows, there are no clocks. It can be any time if they just want you to stay there 24/7 losing money. So there was a great deal of protest in Detroit against the proposed casinos. The problem was that in Windsor there was a casino that was sucking up several $1 million a month.
Continue.
Sure. There was a casino in Windsor that was sucking out several $1 million a month that Detroit at the time couldn't afford. The casino owner, who's fairly smart, who was pushing for a downtown casino, he suggested creating what he called the first freestanding casino, as opposed to what he called the fortress casinos. The fortress casinos are the ones I've told you about. They basically want to lock the doors and keep you in. He proposed creating a freestanding casino. He would build a casino in an area of town called Greektown, which is kind of like the West End. It's an older red brick neighborhood in downtown Detroit. And it would have no restaurant, no bar. It would have hotel rooms, but that's it. And if you go there, it is kind of odd to be standing in something like a place like this and be working on slot machines, tables, whatever. And there's the outside, 10 feet away, you walk out to the sidewalk. There's nothing to stop you. And so there's whole streets, there's several blocks of restaurants and shops and whatever, which the casino owner in the meantime had purchased. So the income was still staying with him, it just wasn't inside the building. Well, the referendum passed, they eventually had gambling in Detroit. The predictions were more or less accurate. This is again 30 years ago, in that it didn't really generate new revenue. What it did was simply save the $1 million a month going to Windsor to stay in Detroit. And this is true, for instance, it's a very common economic fact of life. When someone opens a giant new mall, does it generate new consumer spending?
It's the newfangled place to go.
And it sucks up from the other nearby stores. You go there and you may do more spending because it's convenient. Oh yes, I need to get some shoes. I'll go get some shoes. I hadn't thought of it. As opposed to driving clear across town to where you used to buy shoes. It's all there.
So you bring up a very good point, and I brought that up to council with the AAC. It brings in $1.7 billion a year. That didn't happen overnight. The development around it did not happen overnight. In comparison to Cowboy Stadium has kind of stayed a little bit bare, but now with the extension, you're predicting that it's going to become a boom town. So with moving the Mavericks, it's like no one talks about the Stars. And we have a Stars fan here. Talking about the Mavericks moving to downtown, moving to City Hall, being close to the convention center, and I get the Adelson family or Las Vegas Sands Corporation being able to have their hotel, have this entertainment district that would capitalize on people coming in for conventions, because Visit Dallas does a great job with getting over 70 sporting events outside of the Stars, outside of basketball, coming to Dallas. So yes, there are people there that I don't want to say taken advantage of, but capitalize on with their spending, keeping it right there, which, great point that you brought up, that 1.7 at the AAC will disappear because it's just going to get shifted over to where the new stadium is, where a new movie theater would be, where new shops and restaurants would be. And it's so funny with Connected Core people saying that so many jobs are going to be brought in for South Dallas. Again, it's not creating anything new. These jobs that exist or would exist already exist at the AAC, so they're just moving over to a new location. So yes, the economics comes into play of is this really generating new money, and I think we're finding out that physics works in this space with energy is not created nor destroyed, it's just moved around to different forms. So I do want to talk about Arlington and kind of speculate what is going to come around now that the Cowboy Stadium is kind of here to stay, basically.
So there's a couple things that have happened recently. We had the first Grand Prix of Arlington. As far as I know, I was told that was a great success. They're guaranteed at least 3 more. So that's a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah. So even one of the things I heard was the drivers loved it. You know, if the drivers hated it, it would be tough to bring them back. But they loved it. They said there was a good turnout. So we've got at least 3 more years. I think they have a contract for 5. So
interesting, because we haven't had a Grand Prix here in Dallas since 80s,
and it was a
like
disaster.
That.
It was downtown around Reunion Arena when I worked at the morning news. It was a nightmare. You could hear it through the building. You could hear the cars.
Yes. And those of us that live in Dallas, we are noise sensitive unless you're a native, and you remember Greenville Avenue being the hotspot for all the entertainment and going to all the clubs there and living around there on the M Street. So you just kind of, it was just par for the course. You knew that's what you were getting into. So, wow. So it's already creating a buzz for Arlington.
And now we have 9 Super Bowls of soccer coming. You have 9 FIFA games.
Yes.
So that's going to be a huge deal for Arlington. So one of the things that's interesting about this FIFA deal is Arlington does not have mass transit. It's the largest city in the world by population with mass transit. So they have had to go to the RTC. They've had to create a sports group to, get buses to come from downtown Fort Worth, buses to come from downtown Dallas and Centerport to bring people in. They are predicting 8,000 to 10,000 people per game will need transit. So I feel that's like the last little bit that Arlington's going to need to truly make this a world-class sports entertainment district.
Yes, and I know I've heard plenty about the Huffines family and pushing not to want to have mass transit because of their car dealerships, but DFW is growing. There are more and more people moving here, and as part of this discussion with entertainment districts, and if you've seen any of my 30 pieces of silver, you've heard me talk about the tiers with the city, and DFW is considered a tier 1 area because of the population that is here and the continued growth of people moving into the Metroplex, be it Collin County, Plano, Frisco, the northern suburb cities to Fort Worth, Arlington, and into Dallas. So Dallas as itself is a tier 2 city, or tier 2A, I believe, with the amount of commerce, being business friendly, and bringing in the industry that we have. So yes, there's tons of potential, and to Jerome's point with wanting to keep the money here. So I have read there's about $10 billion that is the potential for gambling as far as revenue for the state, for anyone who has a casino. And I'm assuming that is going to take away from Shreveport and Oklahoma. And that is not a small chunk of change.
Yeah, and for the casino owners, the Detroit casinos estimated they created about, 1,500 full-time retail workers. That was just the very start. However, those retail workers, a quarter of their income came in tips, and they made about, this is 30 years ago. They made $25,000, adjusted for income. That is $56,000 now. That is below median wage.
Yes.
So that the great mass of employees in a casino, as you might imagine, are the waiters, the valet parkers, that kind of thing. It is well below a kind of household of four's income to survive. It's the interesting thing about casinos, the push for casinos now, is that typically, as with the Detroit example, but it's also true of the Atlantic City example and other examples around the country, even the Indian casinos, casinos came up where the economy had basically failed. In other words, rich neighborhoods were not clamoring for a casino. Casinos were such a huge benefit, were so wonderful. Why aren't we building one in Highland Park?
Right.
Not only can you not build a casino in Highland Park, you can't build a billboard for a casino in Highland Park.
Isn't that interesting that the Park Cities, who comes and gets a lobby for money with City Hall and pushing for this deal because it would be a windfall for construction, do not want to have anything remotely close to them that has to do with any of this.
It's not in their backyard.
Yes.
And they know that the great massive clientele are not, billionaire high rollers coming to have their private poker game.
It's not Oceans 11, 12, or 13.
And this led one urban planning professor that I at the time referred to casinos as essentially scavenger economy. They are taking what's left. And it doesn't mean that they can't spark a certain degree of liveliness, interest, that kind of thing in the downtown, but it is not in isolation. For instance, Atlantic City for a while seemed to be a success. Within 4 years, there wasn't a supermarket in all of Atlantic City. not a single one. 37 different.
Wait. They became a food desert as a city.
Yes. There wasn't. Atlantic City is not a big city.
Right.
But basically, they were sucking. Their audience was coming from Philadelphia and New York. There were bus loads coming in every few hours from Philadelphia and New York. Meanwhile, if you lived in Atlantic City, you had a hard time finding a convenience store. Some 37 establishments closed in the first 4 years after the casino was open. Because if you're in the casino, you can get the food, you can get the drinks, you can get anything you want. You can go shopping for clothing at the casino. Why do you walk several blocks to go anywhere else?
Right.
So it's one of the reasons that, and Donald Trump was one of the reasons that the casinos failed in Atlantic City, is they cannibalized. There was nothing there to see and nothing much there to live for. It was the job in the casino, and there was nothing much else.
Yes.
So that's like a worst case scenario, but it's the kind of scenario that you see happen all over. When you see Indian casinos, it often seems like a kind of flying saucer has plopped down in the prairie, middle of nowhere, and it's brought all this attention, and it has brought employment to the people who live down the reservation.
Right.
But it is totally, in terms of casino, it's not generating, let's build a factory, let's bring in other industry.
Nobody's corporate headquarters are moving.
No, it's basically, as you can see, driving across Oklahoma, New Mexico, a lot of the places, it's the casino, it's the little town that supports it around it, and that's it. For the next 50 miles, there's nothing. It goes on and on and on like that.
So good point. That's an excellent point, because I wanted to talk about how yes, it's a disruptor more than a builder of a community. So with the Cowboys Stadium, because with the AAC we have Lockton, we have Young, the School of Bank is over to Victory Park. So I'm assuming that Arlington will try to court companies to be part of that work, play, and live environment that these ultra premium entertainment districts say they provide.
Yeah, so actually what's really interesting is we had the new Lowe's Hotel, which is the larger one. It's over 800 rooms. And right next to it, they built some premium luxury apartments. And, it's the live, work, play is what they're selling it. But actually the majority of those are now, I believe they're condos to mix, but those are actually corporate. So, yeah. So not that many folks live there full time. So,
oh, wow.
So, yeah, that's the first little delve into the multifamily, the housing in that area.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I think if Katy Trail was not part of Victory Park and part of the AAC, that it would not have had the explosion with the apartments and the housing in that area. And it's so interesting because, as the city of Dallas has gotten in trouble with HUD, we're concentrating low-income housing. And I live in South Dallas, District 7, and when Tiffany Young was our councilwoman, the city of Dallas got in trouble. So they could not concentrate low-income housing in South Dallas, and I'm hoping to have one of my huge supporters, Daryl Baker, come on. He lives in District 3, and there's been an uproar about low-income housing being concentrated there. But with these jobs and knowing that they're not high-wage earning jobs, these are not, they will not become customers of the entertainment districts, okay? Because once again, I told you about the working rich, okay? That's who's being targeted for these districts. And so workforce housing is not something that is talked about with these entertainment districts. So here you're going to have even more financial hardship and stress for these families commuting back and forth and trying to find housing that they can support themselves on, less than $60,000 a year, and hoping that they get tips. And yes, they don't have to pay taxes on the tips, but typically people are not tipping $100 to the wait staff for getting them drinks or, you know, their meal at these entertainment districts.
So I have a story for you that
Yes.
just nails it on the head, what
Okay.
you just said. So the Lowe's Hotel, over 800 people, when it opened a couple years ago, they had a week-long job fair. Okay, there were lots of jobs, you know, for a week, come and apply, you know,
Yes,
and like you were
basically
saying,
get hired on the spot.
yeah, like you were saying, these are not high-end jobs. You know, these jobs barely, you know, can afford, you know, a living wage. So for a week they had this job fair, and basically no one showed up. So
Well, they don't have public transportation.
so two things: there's no transit. People
Yes.
that can take those jobs can't get there on transit. Second, we just don't have enough affordable housing in Arlington to support those people. So they literally, for a large part of their labor, had to go to worker visas.
Oh my gosh. And if you don't know anything about Arlington, so that Randall Mill, Collins, Peachtree, Park Row, that southern portion of Arlington, and I don't even know if a little medical school, assistant school is still there in the old mall. That wasn't the greatest area of Arlington. I know because in the early days of my relationship with my kid's dad, he lived on Park Row. Wasn't the greatest area. So, and still, these were people that they had cars. They weren't luxury automobiles. They weren't driving Mercedes. They weren't driving, you know, your high-end premium cars or brand new cars. So you were very, very dependent on making sure that your car could keep you going, so you could keep going to these types of jobs where you're just scraping by. But one thing that I do want to get into, and if you're just tuning in, I have Jerome Meeks and Bryan Perry here. We're talking about the stadiums, gambling, and what this does as far as the economy, the community, and, you know, one plus with the Cowboys Stadium and being voted to extend their lease is that now there's going to be development. So you're going to have an influx of people coming in for those construction jobs and getting those contracts. But overall, here in Dallas, and if y'all know anything about people speaking out about the new stadium for the Mavericks, I called it a betrayal on the taxpayers, because the stadium owners or the sport team owners are wanting a public-private partnership because they want tax dollars as part of building their new stadiums. And everything that the CEO of the Mavericks has said they want, they already have at the AAC. It's just not right next door to the convention center. I just say talk to Dark and get, you know, some transit that goes shuttles back and forth. You can have a hopper bus. I'm sorry, I'm from the 80s. I'm old. I remember the hopper buses here and there.
Remember the bunny ears?
Yes, the bunny ears. So it's already there. The economics is already there. And unfortunately, as Jerome brought up, that money stays there. The $1.7 billion that comes in for the AAC stays there because it is driven off of the games, it's driven off of the concerts. And with it being a paid-off asset, teams have the option to buy. But it doesn't seem like anyone is wanting to take on buying the AAC. So,
To speak about the AAC for
Yes.
a moment, to go back 30 years when it was built. David Dillon was the prize-winning architecture critic for the
Great
New York
guy.
Times and the Dallas Morning News. He was a friend, and I learned a lot from him. And at the time, there was a great deal of debate about where the AAC was going. There was considerations of going to go Farmers Market, that kind of thing. The problem was that they dithered and sought different bids, and it was long enough that the logical places for it, like the farmers market area, became too expensive. Landowners saw the money coming, and so they wound up buying this disused factory facility.
Brownfield.
He said everyone was obsessed with, you know, what landowner would sell and where the stadium would be built.
Right.
And he said, if there's one thing we've learned from these stadium entertainment centers, is that the people who are moving in, the people who own them, the ones who really make the money, control the perimeter.
Okay.
The money isn't the stadium. The money is the hotels, it's the condos, it's the restaurants. Those are the real influx of money.
Okay.
And that's what they tried to do with American Airlines Center. There was, if you remember, the W Hotel.
Yes.
That the Bush family was involved with.
Yes.
There are, the whole series of townhouses and condos and that kind of thing. The city did throw in a dart line. The city actually added a whole dart line, which didn't exist before, to go out to the AAC.
Yes.
If you go there now, not that far away actually, if you go there now, it's still not a real neighborhood. It's not a 24/7, people moving in and out. People have, just north of that, when you start getting into what's called the Uptown area, you start getting some of those things. But again, Uptown is one of those instances that took off organically after billionaires built the Crescent. And it decimated the whole State Thomas neighborhood, mixed race, black, and even Freedmantown area. But it became an area where young people with money who were working downtown or working in that area could find living. So if you work over there, as I did with the KERA, and there's a game on, it's the only time that area suddenly is flooded with pedestrian traffic.
Yes.
Right? Because it's this horde of people coming down from Uptown to go to the American Airlines Center.
Yes.
It's the only time I rarely would see massive pedestrian traffic in Dallas in the hottest time of the year. Because they're going to the games.
Right.
The other thing that David said to me that I thought was very wise, he says it's actually very, very hard to redirect the downtown. As small as a downtown is, or as kind of empty as it might be, it's actually really hard to redirect. That is to take the economic center of a place and shift it somewhere else.
Okay.
Because that is a very complicated procedure involving neighborhoods, the kind of establishments that make a neighborhood. Can dry cleaners afford to have a store there that serves the people in the neighborhood?
Okay. Yes.
So many of
the amenities.
So many of the people who work downtown, basically there's a dry cleaner in their tower. And he's supported by the corporation that owns the tower to keep him there so the workers, the office workers, are happy. It's not really a neighborhood dry cleaner. I don't walk over 3 blocks, go into the Trammell Crow building and use the dry cleaners.
Yes, there's not, even though downtown, and all of us here remember downtown, I'll say, remember it in the 70s and the 80s, and then all the stores started closing, leaving, going to malls, going to the suburbs, but is now essentially a bedroom community. There's no grocery store.
No.
Manor House does have, I think, a store, but it's really there for the residents.
There's a Tom Thumb over towards Baylor. There's a Tom Thumb that's moved over to, it's not the most convenient thing. There's also a Tom Thumb now towards Uptown.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're sort of bracketed. But if you were living on Main downtown, neither of those is a convenient place to go to.
No.
You might as well drive to the suburbs because you're not going to walk to one of those stores.
Yeah, I think anybody who moves here from the Northeast, like Philadelphia or New York City, is not going to recognize it.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, what is this?
Yes. You're still going to be using your car because our mass transit here doesn't support that.
So what I'm saying is the idea of bringing in something like a casino, something like even an elaborate entertainment center with hotels, restaurants, what have you, doesn't necessarily transform a city. It doesn't make a neighborhood. And sometimes those kinds of developments, like the Crescent, can be a slow spark to transform the area around it. But it took 35 years.
Yes, it did.
It wasn't a case of we can all cash in our checks now, we've made it, the whole place has changed.
Yes.
I mean, I used to have a doctor who worked in a converted house, lovely house that had been converted, great doctor, 3 blocks from the Crescent.
Yes.
None of that exists anymore. There are occasional law offices back there.
Right.
But I don't know anyone who owns a home in that area anymore.
No.
That was Little Mexico that got bulldozed.
Yes, sad.
All of
Yes,
that.
yes.
So, yes, it's transformed the city. Yes, it has made this very wealthy high-rise community go up there. But for 30, 35 years, there was none of that was happening.
No.
It drove out a number of arts companies. Kitchen Dog Theater was one that was on there. Theater 3 is barely hanging on because it's partly because the people who owned the Quadrangle wanted to keep them there, and so they cut a deal to keep them there. So that was sort of an enlightened corporation.
And I will tell you, so Love Dream Cafe, we used to go there all the time.
It's now in Mahinger.
Right. Because, well, you had kids, you went to the Dream Cafe because they had the empty field there and all the kids would go and play. And once that, the development started happening around that, it lost its charm.
Yep.
And that is one thing that DFW basically has 7 entertainment districts. There's one opening up in Mansfield here soon. And I question, can we support them? But one of the criticisms about all of these entertainment districts, besides, as Jerome pointed out, cannibalizing, and we don't even have the casino yet, they're single use. They focus on non-local entertainment, and I would also say non-local small business, meaning businesses. And everything dies down after the events kind of leave from being there. So if you're talking about sports, you're talking about 40, 50 games during a season, if that many. So what else is coming through? And that's why I kind of wonder about having another concert venue, as the CEO of the Mavericks is talking about, with being located where their new stadium will be, because you have Dos Equis at Fair Park, still have concerts at the AAC, but there's the Irving Music Factory. There are so many places where, you know, concerts can be had in Arlington by the Rangers Stadium. And it's kind of like, really? Are we having that many concerts going on?
Well, you just explained the rise of things like monster truck rallies. They don't have a season. And so you bring them into the
fill in.
Yes, you bring them into places like the American Airlines Center. They're eternal. And so there are a number of events like that didn't exist 30 years ago. But their only purpose is to fill an arena on the off season. Otherwise, you're right. It's just sitting there empty.
I did not know, but then I'm not a fan. Because
I'm from Detroit.
Yeah.
You know, monster truck rallies.
I did actually go in the 80s to the old Dallas Cowboys Stadium. Went to a monster truck. It was a truck pull and a monster truck rally. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I did not see this coming, and that was one of the questions that I have is, what are they expecting in these entertainment districts? Because one of the things that the Mavericks complains about with the AAC is that they can't provide the experience that fans want to have. What kind of experience are the fans wanting? I mean, I've been to the Mavericks games. I went there in the early days of the AAC. It was very, eye-opening and glamorous and all of these things. But what else are we going to have to entertain people that you're targeting high price tickets to generate all of this income?
It's becoming an issue because that used to be the premier venue for the just top of the line acts. That's where Beyonce would play,
right?
As opposed to the Bomb Factory, the Toyota Music Factory thing. But because of things like Bomb Factory, Toyota Music Factory, all the kind of B-line, C-line acts have multiple venues to choose from. They're all over the place.
Yes.
I'm just gonna say Jack White's coming at Bomb Factory. So.
All right. So get your tickets and come on out. Come on to be
I don't consider him a B act. I'm just saying.
You weren't paid to say that.
But it seems that Deep Ellum. I'm that Gen Xer. I remember the multiple transitions that Deep Ellum has gone through. I remember, the theater focus in Turtle Creek. Those were the destinations. Bishop Arts became a destination for entertainment. And if you're having these entertainment districts, it really seems that it will pull away from those neighborhood eclectic type places where, you can have your Cheers experience and it's part of your community.
I don't know if it'll pull away from them because that's precisely the unique experience those people want. They go to. They're not going to travel all the way to American Airlines and expect Cheers.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to go to the Wild Detectives bookstore, in Bishop Arts, and you go to the various stores in that area, you can see a reading, you can see music, you can see movies at a bookstore. And it's a funky bookstore, and it's got a great selection of books. It's already.
You're not going to have that in an entertainment.
No. But it's already, that neighborhood is transformed already because of the high-rise condos and things.
Yes.
That I'm surprised Wild Detectives is still there at all.
Yes.
That it hasn't been priced out because of rents. That whole area has been gentrified to a fairly well. But I'm impressed with the guys running it that it's still there. But typically, what happens is there was an artist years ago. There was a performance artist that used to do a tabletop show in which artists were represented by paintbrushes. They all had different colored hair, and they would go around and find little havens to live and work, their studios. And then there were guys at Top Hats who would come. These were all little puppets that worked on the table, and they would buy up the whole area. And this kept going on. They were pursuing them all over the table, which was painted like a globe. It was this whole world. And eventually, the artists fell off the end of the earth because they ran out of place. They were just pushed off the end of the earth.
By the cat, the big magical cat. Yes.
I forgot the term he used for artists, but it was something along the lines of expeditionary real estate price.
Wow.
That's what they did, and move into an area that was not seen as having much value, but because they made the value, it then became valuable, and they were bought up, and they had to go find some other place until there were no more cheap places left.
Vicious cycle.
Wow. So we've talked about the success of some of these entertainment districts, and again, to point out bigger markets, your LA's, your New York's, your Boston's, Chicago, the DFW area, being able to support a main entertainment district. But I do want to talk about some of those that they've tried. Did not work. Main one, which I thought was so interesting, was Phoenix with the Tempe Entertainment District. So it was going to be anchored by the Arizona Coyotes, which was a hockey team.
That's an entertainment district. Sorry.
Yeah.
They're not a great team. Anyway.
And here's the thing. The voters rejected all three propositions. They said no, 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 no. One was the trust of the sport team ownership. The public just did not have a high level of trust. And the scale of the project, because it was going to be $2.1 billion. And I don't necessarily... Phoenix is not one of those places that I say, oh, I want to go and travel to. It doesn't seem like a tourist destination. And I'm not downgrading Phoenix, but it's just not a place that you say, oh yeah, going to like New York, Chicago, even to, crowded LA. So the Coyotes ended up leaving because of this. But Cincinnati, $8 million in concert for a concert venue that was going to be spent by the city. Critics of this was like, well, you have a $35 million shortfall with your city budget. And the city of Dallas has a $5 million shortfall, and they're doing a hiring freeze. Yet we are trying to court the sports team and give away City Hall so they can stay. So big question for me is filler events, but having the separate concert venue from the stadium. I mean, to me, it doesn't sound like good financial sense to separate the two. So, is anybody going back to joining those together?
The stadiums. The problem with a stadium for a concert event is kind of like having the sports season. Is there's only a handful of acts that are going to fill that place that make it affordable. So having another music venue of a different size, you want that flexibility. Not everyone is, Beyonce. It's going to sell it out. Yeah. As much as anything, these places become almost burdens because it's just a huge piece of land sitting there that isn't used regularly. It's not a grocery store that people are coming to every day. And there was the place, I forgot what it's called, the thing that's in Grand Prairie.
Off of
Verizon.
The Verizon. Yeah.
Well, it was changeable. I went and saw a number of things there where they basically they were thicker than drapes, but they were like drapes. They would cut off whole sections of it, so they could reduce it by half if need be, and it made a lot of sense. It's just that the audience for it was always 30 miles away. It was either in Dallas or Fort Worth to get there. There wasn't a sufficient audience nearby for that. So it was. I mean, that's why they built Arlington and Grand Prairie to begin with, is to feed off of major cities.
I think one thing I think about, if the Sands Corporation wants this new entertainment district where City Hall is, I think about WinStar. What are the drivers who go to WinStar? They have, of course, that's the closest gambling we can do, but also they have a continuous stream of concerts of names that are recognized. So, I can definitely see where if they're going to move the Mavericks over there and they're going to have their casino, they can definitely kind of repeat that WinStar formula with that smaller theater.
Right. So, I'm assuming they have their winning formula in Shanghai, where they have their complex there with the gambling, the hotel, the convention center is very close by the airport. So it's so dependent on consumers having that discretionary money. Mm-hmm. And so when we talked on the phone about this, you mentioned how people from other teams flying into the area, and you're seeing them days before the actual game, so they're treating it as a vacation. It's a trip. It's not just come in for the game and then leave. Yeah. And if there's any downturn with an economy, state-wise, local-wise, nationally, people pull back. They're not going and spending money. Yeah, and I don't know how that impacts gambling. I mean, do you have any information, or has there been any economic downturns that have impacted gambling centers?
Well, oddly enough, not so odd, I suppose, gambling tends to be the thing that takes off during recessions for the obvious reasons.
Oh, because people want to strike their
last shot. If you have a gambling addiction, this only fuels it more. It's now you have to. But it also means that with the downturn in the economy, it increases the negative effects of gambling. You're much more likely to lose your mortgage, that kind of thing, because you don't have regular income anymore. Years ago, I went to Shreveport when I was a theater critic. There was a major theater opening there, and they my wife and I there. And the only place that they were going to put us up were the people who funded the whole theater enterprise, the show that was going to. They have a lovely sort of majestic style theater downtown.
Okay.
But the only hotel we went to, we all stayed in, was the Shreveport Casino Hotel. And it was a little odd in that my wife and I got dressed up. We were going to a major theater opening. We went downstairs for our limo to pick us up and the other people involved. While we were waiting for the limos to arrive, the bus arrived from Dallas. The bus arrives from Dallas at that time every 3 hours. And so I'm in tuxedo, my wife's in an evening gown, and when I got off the bus was the Grapes of Wrath. It was essentially elderly bikers, women in wheelchairs. This was the audience from Dallas that went there every week.
Wow.
When I say scavenger economy, it's a scavenger economy, ultimately. Everyone thinks of high rollers and the poker players who go from town to town looking for
the high
stakes game and all that.
Being on ESPN and all that great stuff.
Perhaps we've heard of the prediction markets. Polymath and Kalshi are online prediction markets. They got through the beneficence of the Trump administration because they hired Donald Trump Jr., I believe both of them hired him as a consultant. They got legal permission to be a nationwide online prediction market because they claimed they were not a gambling market. As soon as they got that approval, they put out nationwide ads saying, we are the first nationwide legalized gambling market on site. I bring this up because of the nature of the economics of the people who use such sites. There are 2 million accounts with Polymath. Of those 2 million accounts, 671 have made a profit over the course of the year. Those stats roughly represent the gambling economy at large. In other words, 671 represents 0.03 of 2 million. Those are the people who made not just money, but they made the substantial amount of money that was made. It's not that the other 1 million and odd numbers didn't make any money. They didn't make much, or they lost, period. Yeah. The only ones who made money were 670 accounts. That's it.
Wow.
That's really what you're talking about with casino gambling.
Because the house always wins.
We're talking slots. We're talking all the things with the different odds.
Yes.
Blackjack, poker, the slots, keno, absolutely any kind of gambling format. It's great mass and people lose. That's the simple fact. But that's never you don't see that unless it's in a movie and someone owns, a fence. And it's in danger.
Ocean's 8,
yeah,
11,
that kind
12,
of thing.
13,
But they still play up. That's why they have the big name acts to come. Not only to give people something to do or give a reason people to come to the gambling and then maybe go to the tables, but to add that aura of Hollywood, Vegas, and all that.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I do want to talk about Arlington's numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So how have the residents or the businesses fared with California State?
So it's actually very interesting. When I went to the city council meeting where they voted for the extension, we had several local business owners, including the president of the Chamber of Commerce, come and speak in favor of the extension. So a longtime business owner, Jay Gilligan's, it's an Irish pub there in downtown Arlington, been there since the 80s. It's just an Arlington institution. He came and spoke in favor of it. He does offer park and ride at his establishment, and he said anytime they got a Cowboys game, his sales increased 4 times.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean the locals are definitely for it. Now, I think the one thing we're really working on, the city's working on, is creating the connectivity between the entertainment district, which is mainly corporate, and the locally owned downtown.
Yes.
So we got Front Street, we got Avon Street, and they're starting to put up these kiosks in the area of the stadiums. It's interactive.
To show where else you can go and dine and get, so come early and stay late.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for coming and having this conversation. I mean, I feel like I need to do a part 2 and part 3 with this. There is a lot at stake here in the city of Dallas. Hopefully we'll make the right decision, not just for the Mavericks, but also for the residents and the taxpayers. It sounds easy just to add more to the hot tax or add more to the sales tax, but you're going to end up taxing people out of wanting to come here and spend money in these entertainment districts. So hopefully here, City Council, y'all will really consider the math on all of this and not just think giving away City Hall and saving $200 million over 20 years is a benefit for the residents and the taxpayers moving out and giving away those 11 acres. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Hoping that it was a good experience for you guys. Always have an open door, so if there's anything you wanted to come and talk about, please do. And I will be closing out this show to start up again here at 10 o'clock to talk about the probate courts and how that impacts heirs. So thank you guys for tuning in for this special edition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still hot.